Boom, boom, ba-da-da. What's going on, Internet? It is Friday, the July 5th. We're very excited to be here, hang out, talk football, off-season stuff. I think, oddly enough, more things happened this past week, especially with the Giants. Hard Knocks off-season coming out. We're going to get into that. Cowboys drama, Dak in a boot, some defensive squabbling going on. We're going to talk Randall Cobb made an appearance on the Boys podcast about 3 weeks ago, and I just caught up on that. Some interesting stuff came out of there and a lot more. So, yeah, chat. We already got LA Spike over here giving a shout out to the Raiders. I don't even understand that, Spike. Like, come on. Be LA. Pick a team. Pick a good team. There you go. Mike, how you doing? How's your summer going? How's life going?
Doing good. It's the 4th of July, everybody. Happy Independence Day. God bless America and the Chargers' freedom to win a Super Bowl this year. Go on, Joe. Go on.
Oh, shit. Joe, how are you? How was your 4th? How's your life going?
I love the 4th of July. Fireworks and smoke everywhere. People keeping you up all late at night. Am I getting old? Like, is that like old stuff? Like, you can't tell the difference between a gunshot or a firework. You're like, what the hell? What's going on? And it's hot. We just talked about this, how hot it is in California right now. It's scorching, where you can't even step outside without sweating.
It's brutal right now. It's saying they're going to be 113 to 115 today at my neck of the woods. Took the dog for a walk this morning at like 9, and it was already like 99 degrees. It was intense, which brings me to something that I want to talk about. And maybe you guys can think about something on the fly and prepare you for this, or you can just comment on my situation. When I was younger, in movies, you would see people and they would walk across hot coals, or you'd be like, oh, these people are going to these conferences where they're going to have to walk across hot coals at the end of this to conquer fears, to really show what you can handle. This is your mental fortitude. And I was always like, someday I'm going to walk across hot coals, and I think I could do this. And then yesterday I finished a workout and I was like, you know what? I'm going to go jump in the pool in the backyard. And I forgot my flip-flops. And I tried to walk from one side to the deep end. And I was like searching for shade, and my feet were on fire. And I realized, Tony, you thought you could do that. You can't do that, bro. I could barely make it like 10 feet, like 10 steps before my feet were on fire. And I was like hiding in the shade, letting my feet cool so I could get to the deep part of the pool and jump in. But have you guys ever wanted to try the walking on hot coals, or anybody in the chat walking on the hot coals? Like, is there something that you think that you thought you could have done, like whether it's skydiving, it doesn't matter, but then you have an experience that's similar to it, and you realize like, no, that shit wouldn't fly. There's no way I couldn't do it. I will never try to walk across hot coals after forgetting my flip-flops and having the experience I had yesterday.
I don't know about walking on hot coals, but I want the security footage of this now. Can we get the
shit?
Can we leak the footage of Tony just freaking out?
It would be very embarrassing, because like we have this like weird tile on the side that almost gets a little bit hotter than the regular concrete does. Like you could like cook an egg on it if you wanted to. And so I stepped on that, and I've done it before, but it wasn't as hot. But like I said, yesterday it was probably like 106, 107, middle of the day, and it was brutal. And I just realized, I was like, there's no way you could walk on hot coals. Like you're not built for that. And I'm fine.
You're mentally weak. That's what it is. You're mentally weak. Like you didn't prepare your body. Like my wife has done it. She's walked over the hot coals or whatever it is. It's a mental aspect that you got to prepare your body for, and you got to do it. You went out there not ready for it, and then you were like, oh. But if you would have said, you know what, I can do this, and just took one step at a time, you would have walked all over that hot concrete.
The same thing with the bugs, Joe. The same thing with the bugs and mosquitoes. It's a mindset thing.
Yeah, like Mike already brought this up.
I tell my wife this shit all the time. It's the same thing as being cold too, where it'll be like 59 degrees outside or 65 degrees outside or even 70. and she'll be cold with a jacket on. I'm just like, it's all in here, Rose. Stop.
Yeah.
You don't get cold until around 40 degrees. You're a human.
I've my wife doesn't believe that either, Mike. Like I told her, so like I broke my foot before, and I've had to do like activities afterwards. And I don't know if you ever like broke a bone, like it hurts. But like I walked into the hospital, and the doctor, she goes, "No, you didn't break your foot." And I go, "How do you know I didn't break my foot?" And she goes, "Because you walked in here." I go, "Oh my God." It's the mentality that you have. Like you've seen people, Tony, like the different, like when Mike broke his leg, he's laying there on the ground. He's not hurting, or he's hurting, but they offer him a Raider blanket. What does he say? Hell no. No. It's mentality. You got to have that mental mentality. You just weren't really prepared for that hot concrete yesterday.
I was not.
Today and do it again and record it.
Zero preparation whatsoever. I was not prepared for it. And then all of a sudden I just found out real quick how hot the ground was, and I was like, holy shit, this is way too intense. I will say this about the broken foot. That was the first time we ever met in person, Joe. You came over for my kid's birthday party, and you were like, yeah, I messed up my foot. I'm not sure what's happening. And you were like limping around the house a little bit. And then a few days later, you text the group chat. You're like, yeah, I finally went to go get my foot x-rayed. It's like my foot's broken. I was watching Joe like limp around my house the first time I met him. And the first time you meet Joe, it's like he looks big on camera. It's completely different when you know, it's like seeing NFL-sized human beings in real life. Like the first time, I don't know if most of the internet has ever stood next to people that large. It's different. They're ogres.
You get how big I am, and then the looks, the cuteness too. It's hard to take in all at once. You know what I mean? It's like one of the best looking guys you've ever seen in your life, and one of the biggest guys, and you're just like, damn. Like, I know it's hard.
For the record, I leave every get together as early as possible. As early and as quick as possible. I get the fuck out of there.
Yeah, even at his own house, he just disappears for like long periods of time.
It's like, hey, where's Mike? Doesn't he live here? Like,
that's hilarious.
Well, I showed you that comment where I went to Disneyland last week, right? And somebody put in the comment that they met me in line at like Pirates of the Caribbean, and they're like, "You are one of the biggest humans I've ever seen." And I was like, I don't know if I should take that.
That's what she said. That's what she said. Tony, when I was growing up, I wanted to be a marine biologist.
Okay.
And I wanted to swim with sharks, and I wanted to do like all the stuff that you see marine biologists doing on viral videos where they're in the ocean and swimming around and being all brave and shit. But then one time when we were pulling into Sydney, the boat anchored, and they were like, hey guys, everyone has to jump in the water for like this qualification that we had to do that I'm pretty sure was just made up. And I actually got in the ocean and swam around like out in the deep ocean. No.
So they lied.
Biologist dreams are done. That place is frightening.
Again, that's another thing. Like I've never wanted to do it, but I definitely wouldn't do it. I wouldn't swim with sharks. Like water is my favorite. I grew up on Lake Superior, biggest freshwater lake in the world. I love water, but the ocean is like, it's different. Like even when we were out in Hawaii and I'm standing there in water that's like up to my waist, and I look over and there is a sea turtle that's like bigger than I am, like floating next to me. And I know that the turtle's not like a vicious animal, but it was so large. It was like, I don't want to be in a spot where there's things this big floating, and I'm on their terrain. I'm in their atmosphere. You got nothing in the ocean. You're weak. You can't do anything.
It's basically outer space, but here.
Yeah, you're vulnerable. And that's not a situation I want to be in. I was trying to think of a good transition to our first topic, right? And you know what? I'm not even going to do it. Let's just talk about Joe Shane and the clips that came out about Hard Knocks, because I was going to restart my Max subscription later this summer to watch Hard Knocks. I forget who's on it this year, but I usually watch it every year. And I do the same thing where I fall in the trap and I come in and I'm like, hey guys, I don't know. I think this team's going to be better than I thought. I was talking shit about the Jets, and then I showed up and put him first place in my rankings. I do it every year. I'm a sucker for like I said, training camp footage, or like, oh man, did you see that guy make that catch with no defense, running routes on air? I love that shit. But like the first comment from Joe Shane that went like not viral or whatever, but it was like that was getting a lot of conversation, was Joe Shane talking about how the $12 million running back, Saquon Barkley, and then he makes a comment where he goes, oh, it's Daniel Jones's time. Like, he doesn't need to be handing off to a $12 million running back. And then there's the conversation about who would actually be in the market for a $12 million running back. And he goes, I think we're going to be able to get a weapon at that point, which they did. They got Malik Neighbors. Congratulations. I think he has a chance to be a great player in the NFL. What did you guys take away from that clip, that specific clip of him talking about Saquon and Daniel Jones and all that? We'll start with Mike on this one.
I didn't see the full episode or the full clip, but I saw what you're talking about, Tony, going around Twitter, where basically he was kind of talking with like, what were those? Just kind of assistant GMs, different staff members within the management, just weighing out the options with Saquon Barkley. And you could tell that Sean wasn't like 100% either way. He wasn't 100% ready to move on from him, but he also wasn't 100% in on paying Saquon. It backfired because that whole comment about would anyone even want to pay a running back this age at this point? Yeah, someone wanted to pay him. Your division rival, Philadelphia Eagles, just brought him in and put him behind one of the best O-lines in the NFL. So it just depends, I guess, on where the Giants are going. And it was a tough situation. But in my mind, I don't view Daniel Jones as the guy. I don't think he's going to elevate this team. Whatever ideas that the Giants GM has of it being Danny Dimes' time, it's his time, all right. It's time to put you in the top 10 again next year.
So that's one of the things where that I took away more than anything is he's really defending Daniel Jones and his team and his leadership and his ability, and we need to put him in this position. From all the stuff that I read or heard, it didn't seem like he really wanted to give Daniel Jones that contract. It came more from ownership kind of interfering and saying, hey, Daniel is the kind of guy that we want to be the leader of this organization. And by all accounts, he seems like a great leader. But it's like when you pay somebody that kind of money, the expectations for them to carry out their responsibilities, it goes to another level than just being mature and being the face of a franchise. You have to actually elevate the team on the field. So, like, I'm wondering if this thing goes sideways, does he still get to keep his job? Like, does ownership step in and go like, hey, we made the call to keep him, and we could see that if that position was handled differently, you think he'd get the boot after like 2 or 3? I think it'd be season 3 if that happens.
I think if it goes bad, which is most likely what's going to happen, they're going to move on to a new head coach, probably new GM. I know that he's new in this. I guess it just depends. I'm eyeing the Bill Belichick thing and the potential of him coming back to the Giants and kind of keeping it with that connection. And Bill Belichick might not want to go and venture off and coach for all these different teams. He can keep it where I coach for the Patriots and the Giants. And if that ends up being a situation where he goes, I want to have the GM spot too, you think they're going to stand up for Joe and be like, you can be co-GMs?
No,
I don't think so.
No, probably not.
I think any team would be stupid. I think any team would be stupid to give Bill Belichick GM powers again. You bring him in as a head coach. You don't bring him in as a GM. Like, I don't know if it's the same GM or you keep the same GM. I know the rumors are out there that it's Bill Belichick and Dak Prescott are your combination going to New York next year. So they're setting it up where they're putting a bunch of pressure on Danny Dimes this year. I just, like I told you, Tony, that conversation was a good conversation for NFL fans to hear. And I've always wanted this. I'm like you, Tony, where we always wanted to hear this. We always wanted to be the fly on the wall inside the back rooms like this. But now that it's out there, I'm like, I don't think everybody should be hearing this. Like, I don't think like everybody should have heard this conversation right here. But when I texted you guys and I sent you guys this clip, I go, this shows you what the NFL thinks about running backs right now. And this is what Josh Jacobs was pissed off about the Raiders, because the Raiders only offered him around the same price that they were talking about. They said they didn't want to insult Barkley by offering him $7 million. Jacobs was insulted by the Raiders, offering him $8 million. So that most teams were thinking that was the market. They weren't expecting the Eagles or the Packers or somebody else to jump out there and offer more than $10 million. And that's been the trend for running backs the last couple of years. But it's weird that they moved on without a plan. Like, I guess they were looking at, when they show it, they show all the market, right? Like, they ended up with Singletary, but they were showing like Singletary this, Mixon, blah, blah, blah. And they were showing what else is out there. But that conversation right there is like, I think they kind of knew they were moving on from Barkley last year, like just by the way that conversation went.
So my thing is this, and I think that this is sort of the smart business strategy. If you really want to keep somebody, what you say is, hey, we understand your right to go exercise the market, and we want to pay fit market price. Please give us the chance to match any offer that you get, because we do want you to be here, and we want you to get a lot. And if another team offers you more than we can afford to give you, then we wish you the best and we thank you for that. But this whole, like, we don't want to offer him this, but we want him here, we don't want to disrespect the player, like, I just don't think that's the case. Because why wouldn't you just say, like, hey, have your agent call us and let us know, like, did Green Bay put in an offer for $12 million? Well, we'll give you. He
eventually did say that.
Who said that?
Didn't he eventually, Shine eventually say that? Like, hey, we're just going to tell him, like, we don't want to insult him by offering him $7 million. So what if we just tell, hey, go test the free agent market and then let us know, and then we'll see if we can match it.
See, this is why I need to see the whole show. Because
he eventually said it.
That means the teaser did his job.
Yes, exactly. Like, and so overall, I think that the NFL is going to realize the offseason stuff is going to be bad, because really they sound like more educated fans having a conversation about football, which is really all what it is, right? They get the behind the scenes stuff. When they see a prospect, they not only can watch film on them, but then they get to meet them. They get to have, in-depth interviews with strength coaches from where they were at, librarians, like, was this person in here studying for classes? Were they actually earning their 4.0 GP? Like, were these people involved in being great members in the community? So you get all of this behind the scenes access to know what these players are really putting in on a day-to-day basis. And that's why they get to make better educated guesses. That's really what this is. Well, it doesn't matter who you draft or where you draft them. You're still hoping that you're getting nothing's a guarantee. Doesn't matter if you're picking first or you're picking 257th. It's still a little bit of a gamble no matter what.
Well, my favorite clip out of it that came out is I don't know if I sent you guys this one, where they're standing on they're like at the Senior Bowl or whatever, like all the GMs. It's the Bills GM, Bean, Dan Morgan, Carolina Panthers, and it's the Joe Sheen from the Giants. Did you see that one?
Yes, they're like
they're offering like Brian. Yes, it reminded me of exactly what we do on here. Hey, Mike, you want to give me a first round pick for this, or hey, you want to do this? Like, that's exactly what it was, and that's how it started. Because Dan Morgan goes, "You want to give me 2 first round picks for Burns?" And he's like, "No, but we can move on." Like that's, I don't think, like, good fantasy players know that, like, if I throw you an offer right now, Tony, that's not my original offer. Like, that's not my top offer. Like, you know that you're going to send me one back and we're going to go back and forth. So once he knew that Brian Burns was on the block, you opened it up. And that right there was awesome. Like, I was like, hell yeah, I knew they did shit like this. I always wondered when GMs are around each other, like, if you do that little egg out there, like, hey, is so-and-so available? How much? Oh, hell no, it's not available. Or, yeah, you throw me a couple picks. Because once somebody says that, hey, maybe if you offer this and you get that little wheel going, there's always a price. There's always a price that somebody will give something up for.
Yeah. I love it. The last thing I wanted to say that I heard come out, which is I think this is another reason why the show can't show the access in the back, is when Joe Shane says, oh, well, not even Patrick Mahomes could have won with the shit offensive line. Or like, I don't know exactly what the quote is. Like, I'm paraphrasing, but it was something like that. Like, because there was like bleeped out the quote that I saw about the expletive, whatever. But he was saying not even Patrick Mahomes could have won with what we had at offensive line. Two things. One, there's no need to be talking shit about your team, right? You don't need to you need to put down whatever to justify what it is. At least publicly, I don't think you need to do that kind of stuff. Privately, we all do it. It doesn't matter. Like, it's a business and it's comparison. But publicly, it's like, oh shit, the GM is out here. Like, I was one of those guys, like I could be one of those guys in another situation. And then on top of it, you never, in no circumstance, draw comparison of your quarterback to the best quarterback playing right now, to somebody who's on a trajectory to be the best player at the position of all time. Why are you even drawing a comparison like, oh, well, Mahomes couldn't? First of all, yeah, he could have. Even in the Super Bowl against the Bucs, Mahomes was dealing in that Super Bowl game when he had like 3 backup offensive linemen in there on 2 weeks' notice. If a couple of those passes are caught, a couple different things happen differently, like Mahomes could have potentially won 3 or 4 Super Bowls in a row. Like, yes, Mahomes would have been just fine. Maybe they don't win the Super Bowl, but he wins a hell of a lot more than Daniel Jones does with the same pieces. Like, we've already seen it happen. Like, the receiving core last year for the Chiefs, was it really that much different? Like, you could make an argument that like Wan'Dale Robinson, Darius Slayton, I'm blanking on the other Jalen Hyatt. Like, was that different than what he was working with last year and a rookie and Rashee Rice and MVS and Sky Moore? Like, it's pretty much like a similar talent pool there. And Mahomes went out and was an MVP candidate. So don't make that comparison, dude. That's insane to me that you would do that.
And say what you will about the offensive line, the turnover monster is a turnover monster. Even if the offensive line sucks, you could take a sack. I believe Daniel Jones is second in the league in turnovers since he's entered the league pretty much over the last 5 years is the stat. Only behind Josh Allen, but with Josh Allen, you get 1,000 yards rushing and some insane play. You don't get that added on with Daniel Jones. You might get some rushing upside, but man, he became a turnover monster his first couple years in the league, cleaned it up, went back to it, and now, he's dealing with injuries and stuff. I've never been high on Daniel Jones since the day that he was drafted, and now the Giants are $50 million in on him. I don't know how long is his contract, too? Didn't he just sign it last offseason?
Yeah, but I think there's an out after this year. Like, I think it was like a 3 or 4 year deal, but it was like there was something that they can get out of the second year. But it was a bad contract when he signed it. Everybody knew, like, laughing at it when they did it. But the Giants had put themselves in the situation where they had to give him the contract. But this is what we've always talked about NFL contracts. The next man up is that. But I don't know if you guys need to go about and watch the show a little bit more too. They actually talk about more free agents as well. They talked about pairing Dexter Lawrence with Chris Jones before he was signed by. And then they actually talked about Christian Wilkins because I guess Christian Wilkins and Lawrence are friends, and they wanted that to happen. But then they talked about that Wilkins isn't a playmaker on third down. He isn't a good enough third down disruption. Like that's what I said, Tony. I've always wanted to hear this kind of stuff, but when you put it out to millions of fans now, it's like because this could make you like you said, this could put more pressure on the GMs and the player and the people and the scouts that are now saying stuff because everybody has an opinion and you've seen scouting reports on players, and that player goes and does exactly the opposite of what that scouting report says, and it doesn't really come out like. But it's just like this now with millions of people watching this show, they're gonna remember everything that the Giants said about certain players and be like, well, look at Barkley now, look at Wilkins on third downs now. It's just gonna add up more and more. But I mean, I love it. I'll take the content as long as they put it up there.
So the one of the GMs in there too, I think, was the young man who interviewed for the Chargers job, who had some sort of crossover with Harbaugh, and he got an interview, and he's now with the Giants as sort of like an assistant second in command personnel player decision guy there, did a lot with college scouting and whatever, and he's still pretty young. I wonder how this is going to make them look to other owners, because now they're going to be able to have actual footage of saying like, hey, you were in the room when this stuff was happening, and we didn't see you raising your hand to do this or that or whatever, because these guys use every single piece of information they can use, and also are still calling around and getting references and what they did. Like, is there these little moments like the Hugh Jackson moment with the Browns when he was like, Baker, you won the number 2 job. Oh, really? Your number 1 overall pick, you're gonna do something where he wins the backup role or whatever, and that's gonna be that was just like, there was a bunch of cringeworthy moments that one year in Hard Knocks where it was like people were like, yeah, Hugh Jackson will never be a head coach again. Like, we don't care how much success he's had as a coordinator or what staffs or whatever. Like, this is just awkward, and you can't talk to grown professionals like this.
Especially when you come out and you say, I was asked to throw games for X amount of money, but I turned them down. We went 0-16 and 1-15 without the money. Sure you did, buddy.
Wow.
Sure you
They
did.
need the money to lose every game, okay?
Yeah.
We'll do it on our own.
I didn't buy this beach house with dirty money. I bought it with straight integrity. Yeah, just taking all these L's naturally. All right. Speaking of taking L's, I don't know if anybody has taken more L's than the Dallas Cowboys this offseason, whether it was from kind of out of context comments about Jerry Jones. He's saying like, we're going all in. We still like, sometimes I think we hear one thing and Jerry is like, he's just in front of a mic and Jerry's just talking. Like, I don't necessarily think that he meant we're going all in, we're putting all the money, we're putting all the resource, everything. I don't necessarily know that that's what he had intended at that point in the offseason when he said it. But the first thing I want to talk about is, and I don't want to really talk about like what Malik Hooker said about Micah needing to focus more on football in the podcast. What I want to say as fans here, and I want to hear all of our opinions and in the chat too, like, do you have a problem with the players on your team, active players, doing a podcast? Like, as a fan, do you think like, oh, they shouldn't be allowed to do that? Or I want them being on football all the time? I'm going to start with Joe on this one. Where are you at with Micah Parsons having a podcast, or like any player on your team or whatever?
See, I think it's different because Max Crosby, the leader of the Raiders, has his own podcast, the Rush Podcast. And it's a great fucking podcast. Like, if you watch it, it's awesome. But then I watched the Micah Parsons one last year, and there's part of it where this is something that Max Crosby would never do. And Max Crosby would never go on there and say the Chiefs are the number 1 team in the league. Like, he'll give props where the props are done. But Mike Parsons has said some stuff like that, taking down his teammates or bashing his own team or building up division rivals on his podcast where it's different. So I have like I said, anytime that we can get more access to the players and more personal views, it's a good thing. But when you're tearing down teammates, something that should be in the locker room, that's not a good thing. And if you're going to put that, and you got to remember when you're doing the podcast, everything's out there. Like, when we do these shows, we know that we're putting it on the internet and people can clip these up at any time. That's the same thing with Parsons. And I just don't think Parsons has that filter when he's on his podcast, like going, oh, this might not be a good thing when it gets into the locker room.
Mike?
I don't really have a problem with it. I think what Joe's saying, you have a point. You don't really want to go out there and talk shit about your own team. That's maybe not the best move in the world, but I don't see any issue with them having a podcast, just because I have the understanding from having our own podcast that it's really not that hard. I mean, it probably takes an hour a week out of Micah Parsons' week just to show up and record it. He has an editor. He has someone doing all his thumbnails. He has someone doing all the uploads, scheduling the guests, probably formatting the show out from segment to segment. All he literally has to do is just show up and talk. So anything that you're talking about, it breaking their focus or anything like that, I don't think that that's a problem at all. I also like to see more and more podcasts come out because I want to see the online community, especially around the NFL, just keep building. I want to see it get bigger and more massive. And the more guys we get on the internet versus getting signed to ESPN and all that stuff, the more for team internet in the first place. So I'm all for it. I haven't watched that many podcasts by players, so maybe I should start just watching some of these things. But the Chargers have had a few players do it. Like Drew Tranquil had a podcast when he was on the team for a while, and he was interviewing his teammates and stuff. I feel like another Chargers player had a podcast that I'm forgetting about. Maybe it was Sebastian Joseph Day or somebody.
Experience for a minute.
Yeah, it seemed like nothing but a positive. Just
so I think
a little bit more about the players and stuff. It's fun.
I'm gonna call a quick timeout here, and I think there's a difference between in-season podcast and just having a player having a podcast, right? Like, so is Max Crosby's podcast that's in season 2, Joe? Did he do that last year during the season, or is he? Because
I don't know if he did do it. I know
I don't remember Max Crosby's the week.
The Kelce's were in season.
The Kelce's are in season. Micah Parsons is in season. I think we're going to slowly but surely start to see more of these. My thing is this. I have zero problems with it. I think there is plenty of time, like Mike said, where you just show up. Players around the league for years have done like half-hour, 40-minute radio spots with local people or national people. You know, like Brady used to do one with Jim Gray, was like the Let's Go podcast or whatever, where he would jump on there. And I don't remember Micah burying any of his teammates. Like the thing that Joe has an issue with, which I appreciate the honesty of Micah saying the stuff that he's saying where it's like, oh, this team is right now, like they have our number. They beat us. Like it's honest because as fans, we think similar things. Like when the Raiders beat or the Chiefs beat the Raiders 8, 10, 12 times in a row. If Micah Parsons or if Max Crosby's out there saying like, oh, well, the Chiefs don't have this, that, or whatever, it just feels disingenuous. It's like, dude, you haven't beat the Chiefs in 5 years. How could you say that they're not better than you or whatever? I get from a competitive standpoint, you're not trying to say like, we think they're better than us. But like, if you're just like, oh, they ain't shit. It's like, really? Because they got a 5-year winning streak on you guys.
I would love
okay, so his podcast after the Niner game was like, oh, we beat ourselves, blah, blah, blah. No, you got your fucking ass whooped. So that's another one that Parsons had. Remember that? And the Niners came out afterwards. It caused more issues with the other team players too. So, I mean, like you said, if you're going to be and honest, then be honest every fucking time. Be honest all the time.
Well, I think I remember what Michael was saying back then was that he still felt the Cowboys were better, like right after they had just gotten smacked or something like that.
Yeah.
But I said we start a shit talking podcast specifically. All the concerns about shit talking stuff. Let's just get someone in there that doesn't mind playing in the middle, and let's bring on Max Crosby and Khalil Mack, and let's just let them talk shit to each other on a podcast during the week of a game. I think that will be pretty fun.
So I think go ahead, Joe.
Well, kind of like when, I don't know if you ever seen that clip of when they're eating, like people eat hot wings and they have to tell like the truth. And they had Boza and Mac on there. And they were like, who's the easiest quarterback to sack or something like that? And Boza looked at Mac and goes, that's your boy. And Mac is like, I'm not going to say it. And he eats the hot wing.
They both know.
So, and that was
what they were talking about.
Yeah, that's an off-season thing. The hot ones with the creator Sean, I'm blanking on his name, but that is an off-season thing. They're doing that during training camp or whatever. They give access. They're bulk shooting those. They'll shoot like 4 or 5 episodes in one day, whatever. For me, this is what we want. This is an entertainment, and I could see how other players in the locker room, like Malik Hooker, taking issue with certain things when it's like, hey, we're all making sacrifices. We're all sacrificing time with our families, whatever we're doing for 6 to 8 months a year. Like, we need to focus on this. But as fans, like, this stuff is entertaining. Watching Micah and CJ Stroud and them having a podcast this year, even though they're on opposite teams, like all of this stuff, the more access we get, the more entertainment that I find comes from all this stuff. And it was like the first real player in-season podcast that I ever started watching was Bussin' with the Boys. Like, that's still one of my favorite podcasts to catch. I don't watch every single one, but like when there's guests on that I really like I will listen to the whole thing. I find it entertaining. They were doing in-season stuff. And it's hard to go to a microphone after a loss when you just have to answer questions from the podium. But now you're sitting there and shit's going to come out. Like, things are going to set, real emotions are going to come out. It's going to create drama. But for me, I'm here for it. Like, I like it. I think it's funny and entertaining. I don't know if I'd love it if the Chargers were doing it, but like, I'm definitely, I love listening to Micah every week.
Imagine you get Sauce Gardner and Tyreek. Imagine you get Sauce Gardner and Tyreek Hill on there or something before a matchup.
Yeah,
that would be so much fun. And they would be able to keep it civil enough and competitive enough to where it doesn't go overboard.
Coaches have done it for years. For I don't know, since I was young. That every coach, I think, in the NFL has a day. I think Mondays or Tuesdays where they go on a radio show and they do an hour show, like the Harbaugh Hour or whatever. And they're not bashing their team, but they're most coaches know how to talk now and what to say, where they're not coming out and saying that they're just giving us the bullshit answers. But most coaches have done it, so they have the time to do it, like on their time off or their Monday off or their Tuesday off or whatever. But yeah, Mike, I'm with you. If we can get like matchups, like the NFL can put it together, where like this week is the Raiders and the Chargers, and on Tuesday's show we have Max Crosby and so. I'll take it.
Just don't let the NFL take it. Just don't let the NFL take it. We need to keep it.
Let's go.
We need to keep it away from the NFL. Someone big, like a Pat McAfee guy on the internet, needs to put this together and make it happen. Because if the NFL gets it, they're gonna ruin it. It's inevitable. So let's keep it with us. Let's keep this idea here. Actually, I've been looking for a new podcast. Anyways, this one stinks. So if you guys are looking for somebody, play the middleman. I'm a very unbiased host.
You should get Justin Herbert on your podcast. I'm sure he's a very entertaining person.
Yeah, he's a good shit talker, right?
So here's the thing: is I do love the idea of sort of having like a heavyweight fight. Like, hey, this weekend we have Tyreek Hill going up against Sauce Gardner, and we're gonna have like a little press conference where they're gonna be able to, old school Tyson, Foreman shit talk match back and forth like that. I do think that's fun. The coaching thing, though, coaches are always grown up, super measured, professional. And when they want to put something into the media as a message to the team, it's usually well calculated. These players coming out, like a lot of this stuff is after a loss. It's emotional. And that's the part to me that's interesting, is we want to hear people saying things that are not the cookie cutter answers that we just get at the podium after a game. Well, it's like, yeah, I just got to go watch the film and we got to be better and whatever. Like, I like to hear the sort of
Dennis Green.
Yes,
They are who we thought they were.
And again, this could be very bad for teams, for everything. Anthony Monsanto was saying something in here about like fans being able to criticize the players and stuff like that for not performing well. Just listen to any of these new athletes that have lived through this generation. They're telling you they're seeing it all. They all type their name into search engines, whether it's Twitter or Google or whatever. They're seeing all the awful shit that's said about them. Some players handle it well. Some players don't. Some players avoid it completely, but they're all seeing this shit. They can't. They're human beings.
Some players try to sue you. Some players will even try and sue you if you say something too negative, too true.
I don't think people understand that. And it took me a while to understand that too, Tony, and you've always said it. But like Mike and I put videos out all the time. And you kind of stay away from it. But Mike and I are always putting videos out. And then we see like people who like our videos or people who comment on our videos. And we're like, holy shit. Like at the end of the day, we're still fans. And we're like, so-and-so just liked my video. Like, and it's weird to know, like you said, yes, these guys are watching these videos. Like, they have time to scroll just like we do at late night or whatever they're doing. And you're like, oh, crap. I hope they didn't take that wrong, or how'd they like it? Did they like the video? And it's like, and then you got to see them in person. If you ever get to meet them, it's like, oh, here we go.
So Anthony's saying, imagine Aaron Rodgers with his own podcast. I can almost like guarantee you 150,000, 90% that he's gonna have his own podcast after his career. He's not going TV like Brady did, and it might not even be about football. His podcast might not even be about football.
That's what I'm just gonna say. Like, it's not even gonna be about football. It's gonna be about all things non-football.
But Aaron Rodgers kind of started it, right? Because he did every Tuesday on the Pat McAfee show. He did like a segment on there, right?
That was regular, yeah. I think other people.
He was a regular, like I think it was every Tuesday that he was. Hey, Aaron Rodgers is going to be here, and he's going to talk about everything, and it was in the season. So I mean, he kind of started it.
He was firing people on there too. He wasn't holding back.
The more platforms we get for these guys to not have to be sort of studio network buttoned up, the more stuff we're going to get like this. That's this. The evolution of media and how it's going, like, these players have always wanted to have a better opportunity to control narratives. Like, you can think whatever you want about a guy like Antonio Brown, but he's even saying it. He's like, it is unfair how we are portrayed sometimes. And now these players are getting the opportunity when I love to watch The Pivot, and you get them on there and it's like, they say more in a 3-minute segment on The Pivot than they've said maybe in their entire careers about stuff, because they're in an environment where they have trust and they feel it's like that Will Ferrell scene from Old School where it's like they're in therapy. Like, we're in the trust, we're in the treaty with the nest. I thought I could say whatever I want. And that's how they get comfortable enough to think that they can just open up on another level that they would never just open up in front of the media, because the media is going to be like, gotcha. Now I'm going to spin this story however I want. When they get on there, they get to say what they get to put the context and real, actual in-depth thought behind whatever it is. And I'm all here for it. I'm a fan of it. I enjoy it.
Micah should send some shots back at Malik Hooker in next week's podcast. He should show up in a customized Micah Parsons Houston Texans jersey.
Well, I think the mature thing to do is kind of what he did, which was just to say, like, hey, you're my teammate. If you did have an issue with stuff, like, give me a call. Not to say that Micah would have stopped, but like, we've already seen like the comments Micah made.
They've talked to each other since, because I think Hooker has now put out a statement about it.
Yeah, but like, so they have. My thing is like Micah is different, and he is immediately going to be one of the best broadcasters when he retires, because he's entertaining and he gets it. Like, he's almost got a little Charles Barkley to him, where it's like he is just fun and saying things, and people kind of think he's a little dumb, but he's not. He leans into it and he rolls with it. And the more he's going to have so many hours repped at being in front of a microphone. And if you listen to the way he carries the podcast and the in-depth stuff he goes on and around the league, like, he's smart, he's funny, like, he is going to be a star when he's done off the field. Micah said the thing about Zimmer where he's like, yeah, we've said maybe 20 words to each other, and I've heard he likes me to do things one way. I like to do things this way. Zimmer's had a lot of great players, but he's never had a Micah. Like, we want to hear players say that kind of shit. I want to know that Micah thinks he's as great as we think he is. Because we are like, oh shit, like, I don't love the LT comparisons, but I'll tell you something I do love. I do love when I am like, oh, I know he's making a play. I know that in this game, at some point, Mike is going to do something where I'm like, holy shit, how could you be that fast? How could you shut a block like that? How could you get skinny and split and make a tackle in the backfield like that? Like, that's not, it doesn't look human sometimes when he makes plays.
Yeah, and it's crazy how much he's held too. Like, I mean, anytime you have a good pass rusher, you know that they get held. But there was a time where he was like, he didn't have a holding penalty on him for like 10 games or something like that. And you could just see like 3 or 4 people that, they game plan for Parsons alone. But here's the thing. We were talking about the Dallas Cowboys offseason and how they keep taking L's and how it's building up on them, right? And then we got into the podcast thing. But I've talked to a lot of Cowboy fans this offseason, and all of them are down. Like, there's not one Cowboy fan out there going, we them boys this year. Like, this is crazy, and I love it because I hate the Dallas Cowboys, and I love the downfall of the Dallas Cowboys, and we've talked about it, where we just see the Dallas Cowboys are either a flush away or one match away from burning up this season. And I threw this at a Cowboy fan yesterday, a big Cowboy fan that I always talk to, and I said, you know what it's setting it up? Micah Parsons will be the biggest villain in Dallas Cowboys if when he becomes a free agent, he signs with the Philadelphia Eagles. And I would love that. Nothing more than to see Micah Parsons go, and he goes, yeah, we would all hate him. We'd burn his jerseys and everything. I go, yeah, you would. And I'll sit there and laugh my ass.
Well, he grew up an Eagles fan, I think. He grew up an actual Philly guy. But I think if it happened, for one, the Cowboys will be the stupidest team in the world to ever let him hit free agency. They better trade him. You better trade him.
Here's
you
the
better
thing,
not
guys.
ever let this guy hit free agency on his rookie freaking contract. They can get a trade done anywhere else but Philadelphia.
Before we see Micah go to the Eagles, there is a small part of me that believes there's a good shot. We talked about Belichick going to coach the Giants, that Dak Prescott gets a big payday from the Giants. Like, I know that they have they'll have some cap situation, whatever it is, but like if Dak Prescott looks around and goes, oh wait, so I could go be with the coach that Tom Brady won 6 Super Bowls with at the end of his career when this man's trying to chase Don Shula's record, and I know that I'm going to get to be in an environment and in a building that's focused on winning, maybe as rigid and strict as it is. Like, what if Dak goes to the Giants? Like, the Cowboys are really flirting with ending up in a situation where it's like, oh, wait, we had all of these players that were phenomenal talents, and then all of a sudden we're left with like CeeDee Lamb, and Quinn Ewers from Texas is now the quarterback of the Cowboys, and we're trying to groom him, or we moved on to Trey Lance next year, whatever it is. It's like, and maybe Trey will hit. I don't know, but like,
that's why they had to pay Amari Cooper a couple of years ago, remember? Because he went and flirted with the Washington football team, and then ended up coming back and signing for $100 million, and they ended up trading him. But yeah, those rival guys are like, yeah, we'll take from the Dallas Cowboys. We'll take from them all day. And CeeDee Lamb, the CeeDee Lamb situation is, why aren't you signing CeeDee Lamb? Like, it's come out that he's only asking, but it's come out that he's asking for $32 million, which is $3 million less than Justin Jefferson. Hello, why aren't you signing him? Like, any other team would sign him. Like, CeeDee Lamb is proven. Like, this isn't the CeeDee Lamb isn't the Brandon Ayuk situation where you're like, is he our number one guy? Is he the best guy in the league? No, you know where CeeDee Lamb is in the rankings in the league. It's Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, and they're right here. And so I don't understand why they're not doing it. Like, $32 million, he's willing to give you less money and not take more than Justin Jefferson. Get the damn deal done.
This is a Cowboys fan right here in the chat.
I want Micah to Houston, Dak to New York. That's what I want to see happen. CD can go anywhere, honestly.
I think it is one of these potentially one of the funniest situations for non-Cowboys fans that is brewing there. And who knows, in a couple of weeks, training camp could start and all the stuff could be smoothed over. Dak could show up. I know I put on here that Dak in the walking boot. I don't necessarily think this is anything to like, I think if it is just an ankle sprain or whatever, like, it's just most likely precaution or whatever, you know, maybe he's got gout like this old man over here where, you know, gout, it helps. You can walk around a little bit better in a walking boot.
But there has to, what if the Dallas Cowboys, we're looking a year from now or 2 years from now, and the Dallas Cowboys lose all 3 of these players. Parsons, Lamb, and Dak Prescott are all playing for different teams.
No,
come on, like there has to be a 30 for 30 of what the hell went wrong with the Dallas Cowboys, and we could just blame it on Jerry Jones. But like can you imagine 3 years or 2 years from now that the Dallas Cowboys lose these 3 players? All 3 of these guys are playing for different teams.
Well, that's why I feel like they need to get the deal done with CD and Micah, especially now, like this week, next week. Because the more we wait, the more the price tag is going up on them anyways. The market just keeps going up and up and up. But also, the more they wait, the more they run the risk that these guys start chatting. Every team in the league wants CeeDee Lamb. Every team in the league wants Micah Parsons. Don't let these guys start talking around.
My thing is more so from like, it almost doesn't matter if you sign Micah and CD to major contracts, if you don't have the quarterback. And that's the thing that everybody wants to be in a situation. Well, Dak might not be the guy. He can't win the big game. But like, it just has to click 1 year for your team. Like, you just have to get in the playoffs, get the right draw, run into the right injury or whatever, because that shit happens. We're not wishing for it, but it does happen. Dak is good enough to win a Super Bowl. He's good enough to get the Cowboys back to where Troy Aikman and Jimmy Johnson had these guys in the 90s. It can happen at least once. But if you don't have him, what is the plan? Now all of a sudden you're paying a $32 million receiver, you're paying a $35 million edge rusher, but you don't have a quarterback that can be winning 10, 11, 12 games every year. Like, you still have to start with that position.
I don't think you've seen the rumor either, huh? That if they get rid of Dak, Derek Carr would be the next quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys.
I did not see that rumor.
But okay, let me end it with this because I just want to say this. Fuck the Cowboys. And anyways, so speaking about podcasts, I forgot to send you this clip, and I wanted to send you guys this clip, and it just popped in my head right now. If I don't say it, I'll forget about it. I don't know what the podcast is called, but Sean McVay and Kyle Shanahan were on a podcast together. I don't know if you guys saw that.
No, but
they were talking about the Matthew Stafford trade. And Sean McVay asked Kyle Shanahan, he said, what were your thoughts when we traded for Matthew Stafford? And Shanahan just fucking had that look. And he goes, I was told that I had the weekend to sleep. I could go to sleep and we could talk about it later. And he goes, and then all of a sudden somebody calls me and they're like, if you want Stafford on the Niners, you need to talk to him now. And he's like, why? They told me I can go to sleep and I'll be good. They said, I'm telling you right now, if you need to talk to him, you need to talk to him right now if you want him. And then McVay's like, I'm telling you the trade went through faster than I did too. But both of them were talking about the Matthew Stafford trade. I don't know if you guys seen that one.
I'm trying to figure out where this interview is because I have not seen it. I've not seen any clips. I would have definitely watched this. I'm seeing some of the stuff. It looks like maybe it's a Ringer interview, but I'm going to go find it as soon as we're done because I find those things to be super interesting. And I do remember that when it was like, oh, the 49ers are going to try to trade for Matthew Stafford. And I was like, oh, shit, the NFL is in trouble. Because if you give Matthew Stafford and Kyle Shanahan a chance, and then before I knew it, it was like, oh, wait, Sean McVay. And it's like, oh, shit. There's actually multiple avenues for the NFL to be in trouble. And sure enough, Matthew Stafford was able to get in there and they were able to win a Super Bowl together. It's like when you have a quarterback who's that talented and really what he's needed is like good stewardship is like of the entire organization, at least the team, like whether or not he has influence on drafting and, like free agency and all that stuff. But you got to at least have somebody there that's like, can keep the 53 in the right spot. And Matthew Stafford never had that. And then he gets to the Rams. It's like, if Stafford can stay upright, I think the Rams are going to win the NFC West this year. Now, I did put the curse on the Seahawks last year. I'm probably going to put the curse on the Rams this year. But I think the Rams are going to be great this year. I know they lost Aaron Donald, but I think the Rams are really going to have a strong team.
I don't think they've lost Aaron Donald. I think there's a little hope that Donald, and I don't know if you saw that Fisk is working out with Aaron Donald now. The draft pick is working out with Aaron Donald before training camp.
There's nobody better for him to be learning how to be sort of an interior, undersized pass rusher because Fisk has got some real burst. Now he doesn't have that same burst as Aaron Donald. He doesn't have the same hand usage. I forget who I was listening to. Maybe it was on Greenlight with Chris Long. I listen to a lot of podcasting, but they were talking about Aaron Donald's hand usage. And I think that's like one of the things that we forget about is like how gifted that guy was, where if you did give him a one-on-one, didn't matter who it was, like you're done. Like you cannot hold a block against this guy. That's why he saw double and triple teams the whole time. But that's
crazy. The first time Mike and I went out to Rams training camp, I was like, where's Aaron Donald? And we're looking out on the field for him. And it's not like he's a big dude. Like he's he's one of the smallest guys on the field. Like he's only 6'1" when most NFL players are 6'5", 6'6". Yeah. And you're like, oh, there he is. That guy right there causes all that issue. And you're like, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to get into it, but yeah, I've heard some stories about Aaron Donald at practice and stuff like that, where it's like they just subbed him out because the offense couldn't get anything done. Even against, they were like, "Hey, we're going to double team Aaron Donald on this play or whatever," and they couldn't do it. He was just destroying and ruining practices that way. So, good.
Here's
for
a
him.
question, because I've been telling 49ers fans this for a while, and not just with Stafford, with Cousins and with other quarterbacks that have become kind of like rumored to be available for trade. But if the Rams were not able to steal Stafford from the San Francisco 49ers, how many Super Bowls do you think the 49ers would have won by now in the last, 3 years?
If they would have had Matthew Stafford over the past 3 seasons?
How many Super Bowls do the 49ers win with Stafford instead of Jimmy G, Trey Lance, Brock Purdy?
Well, they would have the 2 over the Chiefs for sure.
I think so too.
I think they would have won at least those 2 Super Bowls. But here's the other thing that I think me and Joe talk about this all the time when it comes to Kyle Shanahan, is he puts his quarterbacks in some weird, risky situations where they take unnecessary hits, where it's like, and maybe it's not him, maybe it's protection, miscommunications and, center line rotation, or whatever those different things are that happen there. But like, I think there's a little bit of maybe Stafford ended up in a better spot because he wouldn't be in that, oh no, Stafford just took a blind side, got smashed upside the head on this type of a situation.
Maybe.
That's all.
I think that especially in the 2 Super Bowls that they played in, which I think that they possibly could have played in more and maybe one more, but the 2 individual plays, the miss on Emmanuel Sanders down the field by Jimmy G, the miss on Brendan Ayuk down the field by Brock Purdy, Stafford, he completes both those passes. He's done it a freaking 150 times in the NFL, and those were both like the game icers. Those things kind of like those plays put it away, and we would be living in a world where Patrick Mahomes is 1 in 3. Oh my gosh, that
he would have 3 because they would have beat the Rams in the NFC Championship the year the Rams went.
We're talking potentially that the 49ers could have went on a 3-peat.
Yeah, they would have because that Super Bowl wouldn't have been the Rams versus the Bengals. It would have been the 49ers.
Then you think about also, like, they've been good in free agency. They've been good, but that might even recruit just a few more guys to come over too and play defense for the Niners, or play offensive line for the Niners, or play second running back for the Niners.
I do think part of the thing that's helped them win and have this roster that they have and sign these guys is because they have had the cheaper quarterback play. So some of the roster construction has been aided a little bit from that aspect. Regardless, I just think that Kyle Shanahan and Matthew Stafford would have been a potent combination, and the same reason why I think this year Mike Florio did make an interesting comment saying like, hey, Stafford wants some guaranteed money going ahead in the future. Like, we need to keep an eye on whether or not he shows up and is fully involved in training camp, and is saying like, hey, can we work something out? And I feel like McVay maybe is a little bit more like, we don't necessarily want to be tied to you in the future because you're older. And I think we could move on and still be able to
right? Didn't they shop him?
I heard they shopped him before last season. That was what the rumors were.
So when this year crashes and burns in a couple years, they could trade Stafford back to the Lions.
But isn't it better that the Niners didn't get Stafford? Isn't it better that it worked out this way, that the Niners lose every year and choke every year? It's better for the NFL that we have somebody we can laugh at and talk crap about choking every year. So I think it's worked out, because instead of talking about Kyle Shanahan being one of the greatest coaches in the NFL, everybody's like, hey, is Shanahan's legend? Is he going to be like the guy who choked every year? Like, but that could have changed his whole coaching career too. I love it. I love watching Niner fans cry. I love it. It's amazing.
Well, I mean, these two organizations dominated the 80s and 90s. The Cowboys and 49ers, the teams we're talking about, like, these teams were dominant in my youth, like unstoppable.
I'm glad I wasn't there.
A decade and a half.
I'm glad I wasn't there to see it.
It was everything. Montana, this, and then Aikman and everything. Those were loaded teams full of Hall of Famers. Like Mike's trivia question last week wouldn't have added up, or neither of those two are in the top 5. Nuts. Like trivia.
We have more trivia this week, by the way.
So we're going to skip the Randall Cobb. We had a Randall Cobb rundown here. I'm going to say just real quick on this thing. Randall Cobb has quietly had one of the last 4 years have been 4 of the most interesting years I've ever put together in a career. He went from Green Bay to the Texans, was there for that collapse with Deshaun Watson, all that stuff. He was with the Cowboys. He then goes back to the Packers for the end of Aaron Rodgers there, and then it goes to the Jets last year. Like, I just think Randall Cobb has kind of like been in over the last 4 years, like some of the craziest locker room situations, end of eras, beginning of new era. Like, I would really love Randall Cobb to do, even if it's just a podcast series, like, an 8-part series where he is talking about what each one of those steps was like in the process and going into detail and really airing things out, because he's interesting. He sat down with the boys on Bussin', and it was really interesting. The thing I do want to talk about, because this pertains to Joe, because we just hit an hour, is Josh Jacobs coming out and saying that Jordan Love is the next great QB. And when I saw this quote, a couple of things popped into my head. One, Joe, didn't the Packers go to the Raiders, and didn't they get beat down pretty bad? Didn't the Raiders have like a big Sunday night game or something against the Raiders? Was that last year?
Yeah, it was last year. The Raiders beat the Packers last year early in the season. Where Jordan Love did make the comeback, it was where the Packers were on their little streak of where they sucked for 3 quarters, and then they came back in the 4th quarter. Yeah. Jordan Love ended up throwing the interception at the end of the game to Meek Robinson in the end zone, like on a horrible pass. Like, why he was throwing it there, nobody knows. But yeah, the Raiders beat the Packers last year on a Jordan Love interception. But isn't this like what Josh Jacobs is saying? One, players are going to back their guys now, right? He's a Packer. And 2, it's not like everybody's on the Jordan Love train this year. Like, there's a lot of people. I sent you that clip of Mike Tannenbaum saying that Patrick Mahomes, you draft Patrick Mahomes number 1, and the next guy you draft would be Jordan Love. Like, that's how much people are loved. But if you watch Jordan Love last year, there's a lot of times where he looked great, and there's a lot of times he looked like crap, where it's like he reverted back. And I think that's cost him, like the 49er game, like the Packers 49ers in the playoffs last year. Jordan Love threw a horrible pass to lose that game. So yeah, he is a good, and it's something that when Jordan Love was in the draft, everybody knew that he was going to be a project player and moving forward. I don't want to talk a lot of bad shit about Jordan Love because I get to see him on Saturday, so I'm not going to say a lot of shit. But yeah, so I don't want that to be out there, But yeah, I think Jordan Love has a lot of potential, and even the Packers didn't believe in Jordan Love last year. Remember when Aaron Rodgers left, they gave him a 1-year, hey, let's try this out deal, and now they're sitting going, oh shit, this might work out great for
him. Mike, do you want to jump in here real quick?
Yeah, I don't really have a take on this. Josh Jacobs supporting his teammate Jordan Love, especially at a time where Love's getting the support around the NFL community. Not against this, not for this. Don't really care about this. Whenever I think of Jordan Love, I think of the senior year of college, throwing 15 interceptions or whatever it was, and how he was coming out and was still a first-round pick even with that, and how everyone was freaking out. Every time that I talk about Jordan Love, I think back to those times, so it's hard for me to connect it. That's the same Jordan Love because it's almost a freaking half decade ago now. This is the same person that everyone was low on, but still was taken in the first round. I think that he's getting to a point where he's a little bit overhyped, but it just depends on who you talk to. It's kind of like mixed feelings on him.
So the reason that I think that it's like I totally get what you guys are saying, the support there, but just the idea that, like, what if they do this? What if they really go Favre, Rodgers, Jordan Love? Like, we'll be talking 40 plus years of Hall of Fame quarterback play. Like, if he really is the next great thing, like, that will just be an untouchable reign of QB play that is nuts. We thought going from Montana to Young was something. Yeah. Like, the length of which this thing could be carried out would just be insane. I will say this, that and this is not my original thought, and I wish I could credit the person again. I said I should start writing this shit down. But Zay made a good point. Had they didn't pick up Jordan Love's 5th-year option. They gave him some sort of weird contract extension. But had they not had that in place, and let's say Jordan Love bets on himself, through that first 8 weeks, do they not just move to the rookie, the Penn State, Sean Clifford or whatever his name is? Maybe at the middle of the season, they say, well, let's see what we got in Clifford. We have no attachment to Love going forward. We can just move on at this point. So that little 5th-year extension that he got, as opposed to the guaranteed 5th-year option that they passed on, that may have kept him in there long enough for him to keep throwing haymakers and getting to a point where they're a couple plays away from being in the NFC Championship game, where it's like that to me is like the difference of how close, because then who knows? Maybe they don't move forward with Love. If he doesn't, hey, you need to chill. My dog's about to freak out. Pool cleaners in the back. This girl's about to lose her mind. So it might get crazy.
I like Jordan Love, and what we saw a lot of potential out of him, and you just got to hope the Packers can continue to build what he did towards the end of the season. But yeah, he still made some mistakes, and he's still a young quarterback. But I can see why people are high on him and the potentials that's there. But as of right now, is he a top 5 quarterback in the league? No, but could he be there if this whole Packers offense? If you look at this whole Packers offense, it's a young. I think Josh Jacobs is the oldest player on this offense, right? Our oldest skill player at 26 years old. Like they're all a young offense, and they're all going to work together and build as they go. So this whole offense has the potential of being a great offense if they stay together and they can all continue to just do what they did last year towards the end of last year.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be interesting as he fits in with the other quarterbacks and the other young quarterbacks that are in the league right now. Is he gonna take that next step to like an MVP contender or to the elite quarterback status that everyone talks about? There's a lot of great young guys in the league right now, and I think it'd be very impressive if he's even just a franchise quarterback for the Packers to go Star, Favre, Rodgers, Love, even if he's not a Hall of Fame level guy, because for him to be a Hall of Fame level guy, we're talking about him competing for the next 10, 15 years with Herbert, Stroud, Mahomes, Allen. There's a lot of good quarterbacks in the league right now. We're blessed as NFL fans, and I think the jury is still very much out on Jordan Love. We'll see what the Packers do contract-wise here with him, because it's kind of an interesting situation there too, where what do you pay him? He hasn't quite like proven himself yet, but the potential is clearly there. So do you pay for the potential, or do you wait until that potential's seen and then pay? Do you pay ahead of time, after? It's all up in the air.
It's the thing that I've talked about with you guys since the day that I met you, is like, once you establish yourself and you start playing with expectations, it's a different ball game, right? And so like Jordan Love is in that thing where it's like, yeah, they could pay him crazy money, $55 million a year. They could say, hey, we've seen it enough. He came in, he followed up this training camp. He's been locked in off-season program. Everything's great. We're giving him the money. But he has not stepped on the field with the expectations that the Green Bay Packers are going to compete for the division. Last year was sort of like, hey, you're taking over for a legend. We're trying to figure this thing out. You excelled at the end of the season. Now the hype is soaring on him. We're going to see the same thing with CJ Stroud this year. Hey, expectations are AFC Championship game. Like, it's a different level when you start playing that. Now, I think CJ Stroud's going to be fine. I think Jordan Love's going to be fine. I think these guys they're built that way to handle it, but you have to see it. Like, you just giving Jordan Love a crazy contract to me does feel a little bit risky, where it's like, oh shit, we don't know what it is.
Teams get tape on you as well, and it's getting easier and easier and better for defenses to prepare against you. It's like Justin Herbert when he went against the Chiefs in his first career game. He just came out the gates. They did not plan to play Justin Herbert that week. They planned to play Tyrod Taylor, and all of a sudden the 6'6" rocket launcher's in there in the pocket.
And he should have won it. He should have snuck up on him that game. That was such a great game.
He had it, but Mahomes did his stupid shit as he always does.
Okay, so
then again, if you don't pay a quarterback, like if they don't, every day that you wait to pay a quarterback in this league, just like we talked about Dak Prescott and Tua and all them, the more that quarterback pocket money goes up. So
Yeah.
it's like when you have a young quarterback like Jordan Love, it's tough because you see the potential and you want to pay him, but you don't want to pay him and you're questioning yourself. But every day that you don't pay him and he gets better and better, guess you're costing yourself more money.
Moral of the story, guys, we're starting a fan club for Jordan Love. I'm not in it, but Josh Jacobs is a lover. The lovers.
I just love another Bakersfield quarterback. That's it. Another Bakersfield quarterback rocking this league.
Yeah, I love Josh Jacobs. I'm thinking about getting some Jacobs gear this year and rocking it. One of my favorite players in the league.
I actually do like Josh Jacobs, and I'm glad that he's not on the Raiders anymore. I get to root for him this year. It's going to be fun. I'm actually going to draft him in fantasy for the first time.
Next. We're just checking them off the list. Carr, Jacobs, Adams, Crosby.
Yeah, I like Josh. I've had a lot of I've met Josh Jacobs multiple times, and I've talked to him, and he was a real nice guy. But damn, man, you just don't disrespect the Shield when you leave.
Once a Raider, always a Raider.
Oh, it's so funny too, because he is going to come back sometime and be embraced by the fan base at some point. He'll come back and do some autograph signings or whatever in his late 30s and talk about what could have been and all this nonsense.
Well, we talked about emotions, and that's what I think that's what it is. He's a young player with emotions, and if Josh Jacobs would have had a podcast when he signed with the Packers, imagine the shit that he would have said. I think it's calmed down now, but and that's just the thing. Like people, like NFL players put their bodies on the line each and every week, and it's something that we would never even know about. Like we could only imagine how much they hurt them Monday morning after a game. You know what I mean? And then they know that they're just playing football, but then there's a business aspect of which we saw from the Giants, and that business aspect is very disrespectful to a lot of people. And I understand that, and you get your feelings hurt. It's at the end of the day, it's like me telling you, Tony, Tony, I know you think you're worth $10 million, but I don't see it. Like that's an ego. That's a big shot to your ego.
Absolutely.
Of course. And these guys are the work that they put in is not just annually. Like the work they put in, Saquon didn't just work last year to get where he is now and feel like he earns this money. He's put his whole life into it. Since he can start to think about goals, he can start to think about what he wants to do with his life. It's been football. So when you get to this level where you're one of the best at your position in the league and they say, nah, of course. Yeah, that's going to hurt. Zero's joining the club. He's a lover. Zero, welcome to the Lovers fan club that I'm not in, that I just started.
Yeah, I don't know why you were like, hey, we're starting this fan club, but I'm not in it. It's like you need a team. You should lose the Cowboys and become a closet Packers fan.
Mike's already in too many fan clubs. He's in the Dak Prescott fan club. He's in the Aaron Rodgers fan club. He doesn't need another quarterback.
Lamar Jackson. You know he's going to be C.J. Stroud. I can never fully get behind C.J. Stroud because of the Ohio State thing, but I do recognize that he's very good. I want to end with a fun hypothetical question because we had the white party. It's becoming sort of famous, whatever, and maybe it's like Tom Brady is making it famous for our section, football fan part of the world here. But there was some highlights of some football being played on the beach. I didn't get it. I didn't send it to you guys. I was kind of hoping that you'd find it on your own. But if not, it was like Tom Brady was out there like throwing passes and whatever. And he throws a pass that gets picked off by DeMar Hamlin on the beach. He throws a touchdown pass to Micah Parsons or some of the highlights. I think I saw, I'm not even going to embarrass myself. I saw a rapper out there. I'm not exactly sure who it was. But it would just look like a fun game. I want to ask you guys, if I said that a ticket to play in this game for just like an average fan, because obviously the celebrities are going to be there, but would you donate or whatever to like a charity? Would you donate like $5,000 to play in one of these games where like Tom Brady's the quarterback and you get to go out there and play? Would you pay $5,000 to do this?
Or even better, Tony, would you cover up a vaccine-caused injury to the public so that they don't panic in exchange to join a club that invites you to white parties, all white dress parties like that?
What the hell?
Why do you have to take a perfectly innocent, fun question and go full Aaron Rodgers with it? I'm simply asking you, I'm asking.
You're not invited, Mike. You're not invited.
No shit.
How is DeMar Hamlin out here
ruin the fucking show at the end? We made it a minute.
DeMar Hamlin How did DeMar Hamlin get into the Drake and Travis Scott club?
What is it? Yes, Travis Scott. Thank you. I was thinking that's who it was, but then I was like, what if I'm wrong? What if his name's like, Little Yacht Club or whatever? I'm not trying to be out here getting the wrong.
I will pay $5,000. Yeah, I would do whatever it takes to go catch some passes from Brady. I would pay $5,000 just to. I'll do some crazy things to Brady for $5,000. But
no Diddy, no homo. What the hell was that? Like,
it was Travis Scott. There was a bunch of randoms out there. By the way, the one highlight where Travis Scott scores the touchdown, Tony, if they're playing under two-hand touch rules, you can't stiff arm in two-hand touch rules because all they got to do is touch your arm when you reach it out to stiff arm.
You will
okay? You guys I'm saying
crazy. You completely derailed the show.
You would do a lot of things.
I derailed the show. Yeah, I derailed the show.
You
now
sounded
15 into this. I derailed the show. I'm not in the Jordan Love fan club. I think that DeMar Hamlin had cardiac arrest due to the vaccine, and I would do that to Tom Brady.
All right.
Tony, there's a lot of teams out there and a lot of like colleges. I know the Dodgers do it. There's a lot of professional teams and college teams that do what they call fantasy camps, right? Yeah. You pay a certain amount of money, you go to that college or that team, and you perform you practice with players and coaches, and you basically live the major league life for a week, and then you play a game at the end of it. They give you uniforms and everything. And so, yes, that for a market to be out there that, hey, you could play in a flag football game or a tag two hands on back game with some of these celebrities, hands down, fuck yeah. If I got an opportunity to do it, we're doing it.
Yeah, I think that you could sell tickets to a game like this. This is where I wanted to get to eventually. I think these guys could really raise a lot of money for charity in the offseason if they wanted to. Like just going around for people who have the kind of income where they could say, now my wife is never going to let me spend $5,000 to play in a touch football game. Like it's just never going to happen. But I think that you could get a lot of people who have a disposable income that would say like, oh, I'll play, we got all-time quarterback on one side is going to be like Peyton Manning or Eli Manning. And then the other side is Tom Brady. And would you pay money to get in and be able to play in one of these like touch football games? Like, I just think that would be fun. But then eventually Brady would ruin it where he would start hiring ringers where he'd be like getting a guy who was like the number one star on the best flag football team, like the wide receiver out there. It's like, come on, you can't be stacking your team. You got to have regular average Joes. Like you got to have Mike out there who's coming back from a torn, busted kneecap and whatever. And you got to have Joe on the other side who's, not in game shape right now. We got to give Joe a couple of months to get ready.
Tony walks in the hot coals this morning. That's going to take a while to recover from.
I can't run it all anymore, so it doesn't even matter. So like I have zero cartilage left in my ankle and knees. I can't run at all.
I like that idea, Tony. And I thought about that before. Like, I had an idea, like, what about an influencers league? But where the quarterbacks are just like whatever old NFL quarterbacks we can get that are willing to just still throw the ball. You know what I mean? Just get out there, willing to just still throw it around and just gain the clout off all the influencers that play in the league. Kind of like celebrity boxing situation.
Now, if it was Eli Manning versus Tom Brady and I had to pick a team, I'm taking Eli Manning.
Hell no.
He beats Tom Brady every time. But if you were like, which quarterback do you think, like, if I had to build an average Joe team with the quarterback from the past or now that I think could win with those guys, I'm taking Drew Brees because he's putting it on the. You don't even have to do anything as wide receiver. Just like this, I run a slant 90% of the time, and I'm catching
that. Well, every year the Chargers have like a game where the one side puts on the LT jersey, one side puts on the Gates jersey, and they're coached by those teams, and it's like Jordan Palmer's quarterbacking out there, and TJ Houshmandzadeh comes by, and Marcellus Wiley. It always looks like so much fun, and I'm like, I would pay to go be a part of this game. Like I would pay. Now, again, the ticket price I put on it is a little high for me. That's why I put that out there. But like $1,500, yeah, I'd probably pay that to go be a part of that experience, playing that game.
I would play in that game too.
Chargers budget, okay? If you want to do it, take it out of our budget.
Someone
All right.
send the Chargers a letter and tell them that Mike's willing to get backwards knee again for the LT game.
I would. That would be fun. I think that I would. I don't know. I think I probably want to be on Team Gates. I just like the 85. I like that. I like that number. I always have.
But to go back to it, Mike, what are the things that you would do to Tom Brady?
That's it. It's been a great show. It's been a great week. Hope everybody had a happy, safe 4th of July. We are not ending the show with perversion and corruption and whatever else that's going to happen.
I'm confused why we're just cutting out Mike's trivia. Whatever. It went so well the last couple weeks.
Because it is 190 degrees. All right, Mike's trivia. Wrap up the show.
No. End the show.
Mike,
End the show.
I sent you a rundown. I sent you a rundown of the show. Did you add Mike? Did you say, oh, wait, and don't forget about Mike's trivia?
I did not. So skip it.
It doesn't have to be in the rundown.
Right now, Mike's going to throw a temper.
I got nothing. Thank you guys for tuning in.
Okay, Joe, you asked a trivia question.
But it better be better than last week's trivia question, because last week you're wrong. You're wrong. Tony and I were 100% correct, and you said we were wrong. But your trivia question was misleading and wrong.
You know what's crazy is I made a whole video about last week's trivia question, and no one noticed that it's completely wrong still.
Oh,
you just posted
you guys were the only ones that noticed of all people, because we actually had to talk about it for once.
Mike, but that's the power of the internet. You can say a bunch of bullshit and people believe it.
I know. I watch your videos all the time.
Thank you, Zero. Thank you. What is going on? I've completely lost the show. Is somebody asking a trivia question or not?
Nope. I'm already
Tony, your one job on this show is to keep us in line. And
Joe,
you have failed.
Where are your trivia cards? Where are your trivia cards?
Trivia.
They're right
Ask
there.
a question. No more nickname questions. Mike doesn't need an easy one.
All right.
Who's running their business better, Joe Biden or Jerry Jones?
Shut the.
There you go again. We do not need to be bringing in. Wait, what have you been spending time just like studying the Aaron Rodgers brand?
Yeah,
building.
I'd like to make an announcement now. Me and Aaron Rodgers are teaming up on a podcast.
It'd be the greatest movie of your life.
How many quarterbacks were drafted in the first round of the 2020 NFL draft?
Oh, that's easy, Joe.
2020.
4.
Yeah. And I just thought that would be a good question right now because it keeps us on
Burrow at first overall, Tua Tagovailoa at 5th overall. Great job, Miami. Justin Herbert at 6th, and Jordan Love at 23rd.
Yeah.
Boom. Nailed it.
I just thought that would be a good one to start off with because it keeps us in line of what we were talking about throughout this time.
What if Tua is the last one to be paid from that group? Even Jalen Hurts got a payday. Everybody. And Tua's just showing up, just not getting paid. All right, this is a great show.
Last one. How many points would you earn from scoring 3 touchdowns, missing 2 extra points, and making 3 field goals and a safety?
Wait, say it again. I had no idea there was going to be math.
Get your noggins going. If you're in the chat right now, listen up. Ready? I'm going to say it one more time. How many points would you earn from scoring 3 touchdowns, missing 2 extra points, making 3 field goals, and getting a safety?
Wait, do you miss the 3 extra points on the 3 touchdowns?
You missed 2 extra points.
Just do it one more time.
So 3 touchdowns. On those 3 touchdowns, you missed 2 of the extra points.
But you make the other one.
No, then you made 3 field goals and a safety.
30.
Well, did you go for 2 or did you get the other extra point?
29. 29 is the answer.
Your first answer was correct.
It's 30?
30.
There you go.
Close.
It's
throwing you off a little bit.
18, 19. 19 plus 9 is 28. Safety is 2. That's 30. Yeah, 30.
30. Now I got your brains hurt because I didn't even answer that question and my brain's hurting.
Yeah, that wasn't even trivia. That was just mathematics.
It was just math.
You guys want to hear about my 3rd grade math teacher?
No. Do you want to hear? No.
You're supposed to say no. Stop the show. Come on.
I am absolutely. I wasn't even saying no. I'm already hitting end stream. I hope everybody is having has a great weekend. We appreciate you stopping by here at MJT and listening to the nonsense that just carried on for an hour and 24 minutes. Go out onto the internet, say something nice to somebody, put some positivity into the interwebs. We'll see you on Monday for some fantasy football talk, right? 11:15.
Maybe.
Draft Monday. If y'all want to draft with us, please show up on time.
Zero, Spike, all of you guys in the chat today. Monsanto crushed it.